Alright guys, I finally get to review Oman Luxury fragrances for you today. They are sold at Max Aroma and I have a link in the info box. But Oman Luxury was one of my favorite discoveries last year. I actually experienced the fragrances at Javoy and fell in love quickly with Royal Incense, this one right here. So I've actually featured Royal Incense in a few of my videos, but today I'm doing an overview of 9 of their fragrances in a top 7 list. I've left off 2 as bonus options as I'm not enjoying those as much as I am enjoying these fragrances. So if you're curious to learn about Oman Luxury, one of my favorite discoveries of last year, then please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian. Yes, today we're talking about Oman Luxury. I first discovered them last year, but now that I think about it and after I was doing the research on these fragrances, I came to the conclusion that these fragrances were redone. Actually, not the fragrances themselves most likely, the bottles, because the bottles used to be in the fragrances used to be in different bottles. So they've been around for a while and I've got my favorites. It's a ranked list here today and I think you should definitely check out some of these fragrances as I feel like they're really great fragrances. It's a Middle Eastern, leaning brand. It's out of Oman, just like Amouage is. And also Ojar is. So we got Oman Luxury, Ojar, and we've got Amouage. But these definitely don't smell anything like those fragrances from those 2 other brands. They're unique on their own. And they use some pretty well-known perfumers. And I also should say, I feel like they have dark bottles, which are more pricey, and then they have the clear bottles. I feel like I prefer the fragrances in the clear bottles more than the dark bottles. And I feel like the dark bottles seem oud focused. And I just feel like some of the oudy fragrances kind of like overlap, so they're not too much different between one another, so I felt like they were a bit redundant. So I prefer the clear bottles myself. There's definitely several winners here in that collection, and I feel like I wanted to highlight it for you. So today I'm talking about Oman Luxury. As I said, it's a ranked list, and once again, they are sold at Max Aroma, and I have a link in the info box if you want to check it out. And the list is going to start with a couple of ouds, and then it's going to get into some of the other fragrances. And we're going to start off with Dejan or Dejan as the number 7. This is a 2020 launch, and it's created by Dominique Ropion. He's got 2 fragrances on this list. Both of them are oud fragrances. And I left Dejan at the bottom, even though I really like this and I like his creations. I felt like this one does seem to be a little too oud dimensional, if that makes sense to you guys. So it features notes of Cypriol, it features oud, it features Labdanum, there's amber, there's rose water, and there's musk here for the notes. So in the end, you've got some woods, lots of woods in here actually, not some woods, lots of woodiness, because you've got the oud and the woods together to create like a contribution of an overdose of woods. But you're getting the woodiness from the Cypriol in addition to the oud, so it does create a kind of a very woody fragrance profile. But there's ambery touches here, and I feel like they're a bit shadowed next to the woods that are in this particular fragrance. And also Cypriol can go a bit sour, so there's definitely the feeling of a bit of sourness in this fragrance, and I wanted some additional warmth added to it, some light sweetness. They do mention rose water. I felt like the rose water was not as overwhelming or as dominant as it should be. It just felt like it was just leaning to the wood side, a bit sour, and then of course amber, and then the rose water and the musk here. So that's why I'm ranking it here at number 7. As I was saying, I much prefer the clear bottle fragrances next to the dark bottle fragrances. But this is all a matter of taste. If you're into ouds, I think you should definitely check out the dark bottles, and most of them seem to be focused on ouds. And then, as I said, at number 7, we're starting off with Dejan. I think that's how you say it, Dejan. That is a fragrance created by Dominique Ropion, launched in 2020. So moving on to number 6, another dark bottle fragrance and also another oud, which I prefer a little more than the Dejan. Actually, I shouldn't say a lot more than the Dejan. But it does end up at number 6. It's Zafar, and it's created by Pierre-Constantin Guéros, and it's a 2022 launch. Again, the dark bottles seem like oud, very oud-focused fragrances, but I really like this one, and I liked its complexity. And it's an oud fragrance in the end. It's pretty loud, it's overwhelming, and there's a lot going on in here. There's oud, there's bergamot, there's olibanum, rose, vanilla, there's amber, cinnamon, grapefruit, apple, pink pepper, musk, lily of the valley, orris, tonka, orange blossom. And as I said, there is a lot going on here, and I feel like it's a citrus balanced with heavier notes. So there's definitely freshness here, even though the fragrance settles to warmth. It starts off pretty fresh. There's lots of citruses here. There's a bit of zing and sparkling effervescence, but don't think it's going to stay that way. It's going to get really deep, it's going to get really rich, it's going to get intense. But of course we've got fruitiness in here as well to contrast, lily of the valley. So there's a bit of greenness floating around in here, a juicy apple greenness, and then also a bit of greenness from the flower of the lily of the valley. But it gets heavy, it gets powdery, it gets very, very oudy, and I like its oudiness here. And the reason this one beat out Dejan, I feel like that sourness is just not very pleasing for me, that I smelled in Dejan in comparison to this one. So this one really is a complete fragrance. I really like it. I enjoy it, and I like the oudiness, but I enjoy the other fragrances more. So this is Zafar, and this is a 2022 launch created by Pierre-Constantin Guéros. I think that's how you say his name. Let me know if you've sampled these fragrances that I've talked about so far. And moving on to the next fragrance at number 5, another oud fragrance, but this one seems to be in the clear bottle, so it's a little more, I shouldn't say that it's more easier to wear, because it's oud after all, but I felt like it was definitely easier to wear here for me. So this is Oud Aquilaria at number 5. Once again, a Dominique Ropion created fragrance from 2020. And this one features notes of oud, there's apple, there's Damascus Bulgarian rose, there's rosemary, there's cloves, there's patchouli, amber, pink pepper, sage, and labdanum. So in the end, it's very woody, for sure, lots of woods. And here, in comparison to Dejan, we got a lot of rose. I like it. It has a balance. And I felt like Dejan leaned one side and it doesn't balance out. Hey, there's my... I'm a Virgo Libra cusp born person, so I really do have this whole balance thing, and I like fragrances to have a balance. And so here in Oud Aquilaria, I really experience it, and I wasn't experiencing it on Dejan. But really, I like this one a lot. There's a bit of fruitiness in here. There's definitely some sweetness, and I felt like it was easier to wear. It was more inviting. It was calling my name. I wanted to wear it, and I like the rose in here. I like the apple in here. I like the spices in here, like cloves and pink pepper. Yeah, there's a bit of a hint of something like Promise from Frederic Malle, which Dominique Ropion created as well. I don't find them identical. I feel like they might be inspired from one another, but in the end, I felt like, yeah, it hinted at it, but I'm not wearing a dupe of Promise. It's its own unique thing. It does share some similar notes, and I really like this. I enjoy Promise as well, and I felt like this was a great fragrance as well, but I really enjoy the other fragrances more, and you're going to find out what they are. But this is Oud Aquilaria from Omanluxury, and that's at number 5. Moving on to number 4, we've got Wanderlust. So we're going to get to 2 fragrances that have these kind of accords and the feeling of certain notes that are not mentioned. For Wanderlust, it's a 2018 launch created by Jean-Louis Sieuzac. I believe both Dominique Ropion and Jean-Louis Sieuzac work for IFF. And this one to me smells of figs. Green, very, very bitter, earthy figs with some light fruitiness in there, but there's no mention of it whatsoever in the notes. I want to say this is one of the best fig fragrances that I've smelled, but there's no fig mention of it. The notes are blackcurrant, olibanum, lemon, bergamot, pink pepper, saffron, gaiac wood, cedar, cinnamon. So they're either tricking us with accords created with different notes, or the notes are in there. But I'm thinking it's more like created with the accords, with the different notes put together to smell like figs. It's very, very fresh. There's definitely some warmth under there when it's like drying down. But imagine walking in a fig grove. If you've ever experienced this, I used to play around as a kid. So that smell is very, very distinct here. It's really, really captured perfectly here. In the end, you're smelling lots of the greens, the stems, the leaves, the actual bark and the branches and everything. There's definitely this kind of bitter green smell, very earthy, but maybe there's a little hint of the fruit in there as well. Maybe you're walking around, and this is not a very warm fragrance, so I'm experiencing this fig grove when it's not overly baking under the sun kind of a thing. It's a bit more fresh, it's a bit breezy, but this is pretty complex and it's intense as well. So fragrance is really, really great. I feel like this could be a perfect fragrance to wear spring, summer, and autumn, because to me it smells like those seasons. And then of course not necessarily winter, but if you want a little bit of you know, kind of a green earthy uplifting touch in the winter time, you can totally pull this one as well. So Wanderlust at number 4. Can you guess the other fragrances? So up next we're going to a fragrance called Belfiore from 2019, created by Marie Salamagna. And as I said, these two fragrances, the last one and this one, have notes or accords in there that are not mentioned whatsoever. This is a Marie Salamagna created fragrance. If you don't know her, she works at Firmenich. She does a lot of fragrances for Atelier des Ors and a bunch of other brands. She's very well known. This is an apricot osmanthus fragrance, so it features the apricots and osmanthus along with gardenia, beeswax, suede leather, oak moss. So those are the notes that are posted for this fragrance. And to me, this is an overdose of milkiness. So imagine lactonic, milky fragrances with the sweet fruitiness of the apricots. Maybe you're drinking, you know, how you have like flavored milks. This is actually apricots in this milk kind of a thing. But for me, I feel like there's either milk in here to give you that lactonic creamy feeling, or I also always mention there's definitely a creamy lactonic milkiness from white flowers. And we've got an overdose of gardenia here, so perhaps we're getting it from there. But there's definitely sweetness here, there's fruitiness, there's floral touches, and then, you know, we got some suede leather, and of course, as I always mention, osmanthus creates the stone fruitiness of apricots and peaches, but it also creates a leathery effect. So we've got the overdose of leather here when it's drying down, earthiness when it's drying down, some woodiness, but it's very creamy, milky with the apricot fruitiness. It's quite delicious, actually. I'm surprised how good this is. It's not the kind of fragrance I would think that I would rank high, but I really love the way it smells, so I gotta put it here. It's really delicious. You guys gotta try it. If you like the idea of fruity, milky, lactonic fragrances, you have to try Belfiore. I recommend it highly. So it's Belfiore at number 3. And then we've got a fragrance created by Pierre Negrin. If you guys don't know Pierre Negrin, he is the man that created Amouage's Interlude Man, probably their most popular fragrance, but this is Serenity from 2020. And this might not appeal to everyone, but I'm obsessed with cumin in fragrances, and this is absolutely delicious. I love that about it. It's spicy, it's leathery, it's a bit rosy. Really, really wonderful fragrance. So it features notes of leather, there's oud, there's cumin, there's rose, there's olibanum, cloves, musk, jasmine, patchouli, praline, cedar. There's a lot of stuff going on here. It's a bit complex, not a bit, it's definitely very, very complex. And I like that about this fragrance. I love cumin in fragrances, and the spiciness, the intensity, the pungency of cumin is really, really wonderful. Yes, it might come off a bit sweaty to some people. So if you like the idea of cumin or sweaty, kind of musky, animalic kind of a feel in fragrances, definitely try Serenity. I highly, highly recommend Serenity. It's one of my favorites from this house, but definitely not my number 1, because my number 1, as I already mentioned it at the beginning of the video, is one of the most amazing fragrances I smelled from this house, and my favorite, you know, the way I discovered this fragrance house last year. And you guessed it, it's Royal Incense. Really, really love Royal Incense. For me, I like the combination of incense and warmth. The honey in here adds warmth, kind of like the idea of vanilla and incense with Baby Cat and Havana Gloria. Here in this case we have incense and honey, but I also like the fact that this reminds me of the discontinued Kilian fragrance, Incense Oud, even though there's no mention of oud in here, and I never really got oud in Incense Oud anyway from Kilian, but it kind of has that reminder of that fragrance for me. This is a 2020 launch created by Philippine Courtier, and this features incense, honey, amber, leather, cedar, musk, geranium, vetiver, lily, pink pepper. So if you like the idea of Baby Cat, but you want to kind of try something with honey instead of vanilla, try this one. There's definitely a rosiness in here as well, and I should have said this one also has a note that is not credited that you get. I definitely get a rosiness in here. It's there. It's prominent actually, and I like this combination of incense, honey, rose together. Super fantastic fragrance. I really love it. It's super delicious, and Royal Incense definitely deserves to be at #1. And that's the rank list for you guys. What are your thoughts on this house? Have you sampled their fragrances yet? Have you gotten your nose on Royal Incense? My top 3 are amazing, amazing fragrances. Really love it. And actually top 4 as well. Really think they're really high quality fragrances for different styles and genres and things like that. So you definitely should check those out. But either way, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. As I said, there's a link to Max Aroma. You can find out about these fragrances there. Go check them out. But either way, if you have any questions or comments, please do list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook. And I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. Alright, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I much prefer the clear bottle fragrances versus the dark bottle fragrances. I felt like the ouds kind of in the dark bottles, there's not much difference in them, you know? And maybe it's my, boredom of, oud fragrances. I don't know what it is, but I felt like the oud fragrances were starting to remind me too much of one another. Yes, they're not similar smelling fragrances, but they are reminding me of one another. So I've left Khanjar and also Overdose here as fragrances I didn't really enjoy. So sadly both of them are created by the same perfumer. Okay, first of all, I want to talk to you about Overdose. Overdose I really wanted to like, but it has an overdose of ambergris, which was rubbing me the wrong way. So it has lots of citruses, but that ambergris is so screechy, piercing, sharp, metallic, and it was trying to cut, not trying, it was really cutting through the citruses and really giving me that kind of animalic, metallic ambergris presence that I kind of don't like. I like ambergris, but not like this. It's just too animalic, too sharp, too metallic, and as I said, screechy, and combined with the citruses, I just couldn't wear it. This one is just definitely not a fragrance I would wear. I tried, and every time I wore it, and I'm like, oh no, I can't deal with that screechiness. And the problem is, when you're so sensitive to that screechiness, that's all you smell. You can't even smell the citruses. So Overdose is overdosed with ambergris, and I don't care for it. And then Khanjar is another oud fragrance. I can say it might remind me a little bit of Dejan, and it might remind me a little bit of Zafar, but Khanjar is over the top animalic, and I just was, I felt like it's kind of too much oud for me. And once again, I'll say it, I much prefer the fragrances in the clear bottle from this house. I'm just getting overdosed and overwhelmed with too much oud. I like oud, don't get me wrong, but I've been dealing with oud quite a bit now, and I want something a little different. And so I think my top 4 here from this house are amazing. Wanderlust, really amazing. Belfiore, really amazing. Serenity, really amazing. And then of course, Royal Incense. I can't get enough of this stuff. It smells super fantastic. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Have a good one. Bye-bye.